When people talk about debt, it's almost always referred to as a bad thing. But as we all know, Robert Kiyosaki from the Rich Dad radio show has constantly made fortunes from taking on debt. So how exactly does he do this? Join us today as we hear from Robert Kiyosaki, a famed American investor with a net worth of approximately $100 million. We've done videos on Robert before, so make sure you stick around as he has advice that could possibly change your view on debt. Thanks for your continued support for the channel. Let's dive right into the video.
They all say the same thing. This time it's different. This is the new economy. We are just coming out of the longest bull run in history, 11 years, 2011. And at 2011, I made the biggest fortunes of my life because that was the MBS, mortgage-backed securities, and the CDO crashes, the real estate crashed. And I backed up the truck and I borrowed $300 million to buy the best real estate all across the Southwest. And be careful who you're taking advice from. How old are they? Because this is the longest bull market in history. And I look at some of these young kids, and I own some Bitcoin, I own some Ethereum, but they're all saying the same thing. This time it's different, and Bitcoin's crashed. But talk about study. Look at this book here. This is my friend, G. Edward Griffin. That study. I went and sought out G. Edward Griffin, and I sat down with him. And interesting, we met at Jekyll Island in, I think, South Carolina.
Oh, is that actually where you met him, at Jekyll? And for folks that don't know Jekyll.
Yeah, he had a conference there, and I said, I'm going to check him out at the very place where the Federal Reserve Bank was created. And the Federal Reserve Bank, I can't believe that. I mean, people say, don't fight the Fed and all this. Well, my question to everybody is this: can the Fed print oil? Can the Fed print gasoline? Can it print food? But everybody sits there and they've been brainwashed by Wall Street to go, do as the Fed tells you to do. Well, you gotta be kidding me. Those guys are the three stooges, Janet Yellen, Biden, and Powell. You gotta be kidding me. Why would you listen to them?
Well, it's a great point. We talk a lot in this program about, if you look at the track record of the Fed forecasting agency, they're almost perfect in their record of being inaccurate, right? And oftentimes wildly so.
You're very kind.
From a policy standpoint.
Adam, you're always a gentleman. I call them liars.
Yeah, well, it's another thing about you, Robert, that most folks probably already know, but you're an extremely straight shooter. But the point is when you look, if you look at their words, if you look at their actions, they've also got a great history of policy error after policy error. And I think right now you can say we're in the current state we're in right now because of policy errors, but I think they're in the process of making another one, which is, tightening extremely into a fast slowing economy. And I think that they are going to, just like they eventually created the inflation they were looking for, but just got way too much of it, I think they're going to get the same demand destruction they're looking for, just way too much of it again. So yeah, to your point, why anybody really puts any faith in what those guys say, I don't know.
The best thing out of being old, because I remember Volcker saying it's going to crush, so he raised interest rates, right? So Powell is now channeling the spirit of Volcker. When Volcker crushed inflation, debt to GDP was 30%. And today it's 125% if you believe the numbers. So if he channels Volcker, and the other thing about history will tell you this: there's never been a soft landing. It's more Fed talk.
In this first clip, Robert Kiyosaki talked about how he made a fortune from the bull run through debt. Approximately $300 million worth of debt. That's enough debt for a small-sized country. Robert also says to be careful who you listen to, as not every expert knows what they are talking about. Robert also warns that if Fed Chair Jerome Powell acts the way former Fed Chair Volcker did, a hard landing could be on the horizon. In this next clip, Robert briefly talks about how he makes money from downturns and a major issue in the mindsets of people.
I've made more money in the last 3 years in my whole life. And so that's what I want to talk about with you today, is that there's other ways of looking at investing, but to think that Powell is going to save you, when, as you may know, the reverse repo market is running at $2 trillion a day today.
Right.
$2 trillion a day, and people are listening to Powell? You got to be kidding me. I own no stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I do not touch paper. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I think people have been brainwashed by the Fed, the Treasury, and whatever those guys are. Go to school, get a job, pay your taxes, get a high-paying job, and invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. It was in 1974 when I came back from Vietnam, a two-tour Marine helicopter pilot. I saw communism at work. It was not pretty. And I come back in 1974, they passed ERISA. ERISA stands for 401k right now, or IRA. And I went, oh my God, they're funneling my generation, the boomers, into the stock market. And they don't know anything about money. And in 1974, the biggest exodus, Adam, was school teachers suddenly becoming financial planners. I watched that with horror.
Interesting.
I watched it in horror. That's the poor leading the blind. And today we have baby boomers who are hoping the stock market stays up in their 401k just as Social Security goes bust. You think that's an accident? That's all I'm saying. I'm just a Marine. I'm a dumbass Marine lieutenant. Flew the gunship, went down 3 times. But today I listen to this bullshit and I go, oh my God, how can we be that stupid? Because we went to school, we did as we're told. Don't fight the Fed, do as the Fed tells you. Invest for the long term on a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. And don't worry, Powell is now channeling Volcker. When the debt to GDP is at 120%, you gotta be kidding me.
Robert Kiyosaki says that downturns are opportunities to make money. He also stresses how the Fed is manipulating consumers into working their lives off for money. Robert states that this brainwashing by the Fed is a very widespread problem, and it affects consumers and the economy itself. In this next clip, Robert talks about how he makes money from a debt.
So when they were dropping the interest rates, I thought I died and went to heaven because I'd buy apartment houses. I own 13,000 apartment houses. Every time the Fed dropped the interest rates, it jacked the value of my properties up, but I also improved the properties and I refinance out. So today I own no money in any of my property. 13,000 units, all throwing cash. They said in a bull market, even idiots feel smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's one of the best sayings I've ever heard because I'm listening to all these idiots, after 2011, the market crashed in 2008 because the repo market went bad. And the repo market is the credit of Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns was bad. And they hammered Bear. Anyway, it's a long story. My friends are all inside that world. But then when it came back out, they just started pumping money, just like you said about Christine Lagarde, you should start lying. And what they did was they kept printing more money to save a bad economy. It was already crashing again in 2011, but they kept printing money. And today we're going to pay that price. I use debt because debt is tax-free money. So what I did was I rehabbed my apartment, 13,000 of them. I just kept buying more with the cash flow, and I'd refinance out as interest rates drop. So I'm in good shape now. Then I set all interest rates right now. So I use debt. And who's that guy who says live debt free? Well, that's his opinion. I don't do that. I don't flip houses. Remember all those guys were flipping?
So everybody flipped.
No, they were stupid. When the moment you flip, you have a tax consequence. I never flip. I finance out. That's tax-free money. And not only that, is when I started investing, I had to invest at 12% interest rates. I like debt and I don't pay taxes. No, because every time I borrow more money to float my properties, there's 3 types of tax breaks. I got appreciation, depreciation, and amortization. So I zero out. So my cost of money is, my tax on debt is 0. And I use that tax, appreciation, depreciation, amortizations, all in which I pour debt, to offset tax in my income.
Robert talks about how he has made money when interest rates are low. He takes out debt and invests it in apartments. He then rents them out and makes pretty much infinite money from them. Robert Kiyosaki also talks about how printing too much money makes the economy suffer in the long run. He also talks about his ways of avoiding taxes, which is through financing his properties instead of flipping them. Through the use of debt, Robert is able to multiply his wealth without paying taxes. In this next clip, Robert Kiyosaki talks about the possible oil crisis in the US.
Because when Biden took the Keystone XL pipeline off, my oil I was selling from the ground, which is a tax break also. went from $30 a barrel to $130 a barrel. Today it's like 120.
Yeah.
But I went, oh my God, this guy Biden is going to bankrupt. I'm not saying him, but there's somebody who wants to bankrupt because oil is the lifeblood of civilization. I worked for Standard Oil of California as a tanker officer when I graduated from school. I understand oil. I was on the Alaska pipeline and all this. I'm like, so when he raises inflation, the poor and middle class will go broke. And that was just done as soon as he was being done before he took office. And so I'm looking at this guy's going to sell America down the drain. I'm not saying it's him, but somebody wants us to go broke. And I'm watching this going, oh my God, so what else can so I have oil wells. I get tax breaks for those because I don't invest in oil stocks. I work for Standard Oil, but I don't invest in Standard Oil. I invest in the oil in the ground. I'm a wildcatter. Everybody says don't do it. I don't recommend it, but I like doing it. My gold mines don't do it. I like doing it. There's more opportunity today than ever before, but not if you've been brainwashed into going to school, getting a job, paying taxes, live debt-free, and invest in the stock market. This bubble right now, Adam, is a bigger bubble than 2008. This is the everything bubble. It's going to be not only stocks, bonds, but also credit. But there's more opportunities going to come out of it.
Well, and I think that's really worth digging into for a second, because you see a massive price correction coming ahead, right? Biggest crash of our lifetimes. But you were looking at that with some anticipation, some optimism of, hey, that's going to give me a chance to get some great values, right? You're not saying the world's ending, we're all going to die. You're saying, hey, for those folks that are paying attention here and prudently position themselves, this could be one of the gateways to one of the best futures around.
And that's what I'm saying. Be careful who you listen to, because your best asset, but also your biggest liability, are the ideas in your head. And be careful who puts them there.
Robert first talks about how the Biden administration's policies on oil could bankrupt the US. High inflation means that the middle class and the poor have little to no purchasing power, which could lead to an economic collapse. Lastly, Robert advises those who are new to all this by saying that there are countless opportunities out there, but you won't be able to take advantage of them if you allow others to brainwash you with their idea of a good life. This idea refers to working an 8-to-5 job, saving money, and then investing with your saved money. Robert concludes this thought by reiterating his point. Be careful with who you listen to, as your ideas are both your biggest asset and biggest liability. In this video, Robert made several crucial points, these being how downturns can be turned into opportunities to make fortunes, how debt can be used to create one's wealth, and how everything begins with your mindset. Low interest rates mean good opportunities to take on debt, which you can, in turn, invest in whatever field you feel will profit and significantly increase your wealth. Lastly, Robert cautions people to be careful of who they take advice from, as their mindset could either be an asset or a liability depending on who they listen to. What are your thoughts on Robert Kiyosaki's take on debt? How do you plan on making money from debt? Give us your thoughts in the comment section down below, as we are always excited to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.